Hi guys, my name's Subtutor, I'm the man on the Silver Mountain and welcome back. Now, today, this morning, or no, this afternoon for you guys, I wanted to come and take a look at the most recent Death Stranding trailer, the one from E3 2018, and it's the one that has the most gameplay in it, but also it's got a lot more kind of information in it that we can try and pick at, but there's not as much kind of blunt comparisons to be drawn, I feel, compared to what we've seen in the other couple of trailers where, you know, I've been able to go, okay, well, look, we've got these connections being drawn. We've got this talk of Homo Ludens from Kojima, and we've got the way that these characters are all interacting, who's doing what, when they're doing it, how they're all doing these things. And there are elements that support some of my ideas from those last two trailers in this one. I'll leave the link to this trailer down in the description because I just want to kind of get into it this time rather than watching it through, because it is 8 minutes long and we're going to be talking and stopping and kind of going back and forth a little bit as we go through. So if you want to watch the full trailer just by yourself to get your ideas rounded out, the link will be in the description. But otherwise, let's kind of get into it. So first off, baby bum. Can't beat that. But like, every time I see that baby in one of these trailers, whoever it is, grows on me, and the fact that it seems to be, as we'll see later in the trailer, an integral companion to you in this game in some way, I'm all on board for, just because the baby seems to be both very zen and kind of hilarious. Okay, so first off, I commented on this in the last video where you've got Sam seemingly being a person that's there to transport stuff, but now that we've heard his full name, Sam Porter Bridges, it raises a couple of other questions for me. Firstly, we know that it says Porter on his shoulder, in which case, if his middle name is being suggested to be Porter, then isn't it interesting that he would have his job description as a middle name? But also Bridges. Well, we've seen the Guillermo del Toro looking character with the Bridges badge. We've seen the Bridges badge as an organizational badge across all kinds of things in these trailers. And so if his last name is that, but he's basically just a specialized delivery man, that raises some interesting questions, because Sam, very generic name, Porter, same as job description, Bridges, the company that seemed to employ him, is he a construct of some sort? A clone? A specially bred individual? Like, it raises some extra questions for me in that regard, especially considering some of the stuff that we'll hear next.
I've got the extinction factor.
Okay, so the thing to take away from this, she mentions a few things. So firstly, tears. So when we've seen him cry at, or either cry or not be able to cry at numerous points throughout these last couple of trailers. At times, crying for no reason at all. Which then she suggests, she says chiral energy, and this is something that's mentioned again later on, and I'm yet to look up and see if that has any significance, but in the world at large. But in regards to the game, it seems to be that the energy, the weird invisible creatures that leave handprints, and their various other kind of incarnations. They seem to be emitting some kind of energy, and again, we'll see some more evidence for that later in the trailer. But so he seems to have a reaction to chiral energy, and then the next word I think she says is, "So you've got dooms," which makes sense considering that he kind of gets killed a lot and comes back. We've seen elements of that. We've heard talk about that from Kojima and from press that have seen the game. But then he says that he's got the extinction factor. And considering what we've seen before, especially in the last trailer, where he gets taken out and he's in the ocean and everything's fine, but then he comes back and all that's left is a crater. It wouldn't be a surprise to find out that every time he dies, he just reworks the world, like destroys huge amounts of stuff, wipes things out entirely. And, then that again kind of brings us on to that, well, how did he get this reaction to chiral energy, the tears and whatever else? How did he get this level, this extinction factor that he's talking about here? Because if it was natural, then that's very interesting. But if he's called Sam Porter Bridges because that's literally a designation given to him as a project, then he could very well be an experiment.
I think you got me beat.
You can see them, right?
No, but I can sense them. Deliveries.
Okay, so first off, you've got her saying that, or him saying that he feels that this person talking, who we'll actually see later, has him beat on her potential capacity for interaction with this chiral energy. She asks if he can see them, and he can't. And we've seen that because we've in the other trailers he's only able to see kind of them passing by, not them specifically. But he says that he can sense them, which may very well be a mechanic in the game that we see more of later, and why some of the interactions with the baby seem to work. But then, kind of in regards to the situation at hand, she's asking if he would like to work for her and whoever she is, and he kind of just turns her down. Although, now I just want to take a look at these visuals that we see. So, we've got the... Pop that.
Want to come work for me?
So, here we've got a picture of him, seemingly him, although he looks a tad older here, and you've got an American flag in the background. You've got someone here who seems to be younger, but then also an older looking woman with long blonde hair in the back there. Now, rain seems to be falling because we see this grass withering and growing, and everything seems to be fast forwarded because of the Timefall, which we've heard about before. We've seen evidence of before, where when the rain hits things, it causes time to kind of fast forward, to move quicker on whatever it is that it touches. And then it's something that we see happen to a chap that gets caught in the rain, and he ages very quickly. So here, though, we see this photograph here kind of white out, kind of bleach out as it would maybe over time, which seems a little unfortunate. But then, more to the point, his hand gets hit and it just grows out a little more, and it ages, and that one area of skin has just died out more. Now, in regards to the tattoos on his hand, I don't know if these are tattoos that Norman Reedus has. I don't know if maybe these marks are suggestions of something else, and whatever this is, it just looks like a kind of skull, a stylized skull, but what it actually turns out to be, who knows? It could be an identifying mark as an extinction factor individual for all we know. But again, it could very well be that these are just tattoos on Norman Reedus's body, and I'm unaware of them.
Must be tough out here.
One of the things that I can't help but point out is that we've got the upside down rainbow again, as we saw in the very first trailer. We've got the tendrils floating up, or the connecting kind of cables, or whatever, wires, whatever you want to call them, all floating up from things on the ground into the sky. It seems that whatever happened, the Death Stranding event, the caused whatever it is to go wrong on this world and introduce the Chiralian or chiral energy to the situation at hand. It seems to be pervasive, because this is just open wilderness, and yet you've still got things being connected. You've still got the strangeness going on. And again, this could very well just be another indicator that this is somewhere up kind of Iceland, Greenland, where these kind of things get seen more often. But we'll have to see, as more information comes out about location and where the game is and all the rest of it. So here again, we've got a different setup. This seems a bit more volcanic, although the one thing that interests me is that you've got Norman's character here, just Sam wandering around. He's got the baby on his chest, but it's turned off. You got this huge amount of stuff that he's carrying around, but then it's hard to see now that I've paused it, but you've got these little hover things that follow him around as well with more stuff on, but again, that is connected to him by a wire. And so we keep seeing these kind of suggestions of connection. He works with bridges, he delivers stuff from point A to So here we've got the cuff on him again, and it seems to be this thing that he just doesn't take off, which again is kind of interesting. But the purpose for the cuff is still a little unknown and nebulous to us at the moment. But we'll have to see about that. But also, even whilst he's in the shower, he's got the handprints on him that we see turning up as a result of his trauma and death in the last trailer, but they don't seem to be washing off. So it's almost as if these are kind of not necessarily burned into him, but they are indelibly marking him in some way. And one of the things that they kind of remind me of is the kind of nuclear blasts, shadows that you see in certain places, especially places like Hiroshima and Nagasaki, where you had people turned into ash shadows or just blasted onto the walls of various buildings. And considering that we see the only physical representation in the world of the whatever it is that the enemy is in this game is handprints, the fact that these are seemingly indelibly kind of burned onto him as a result of whatever it is that he goes through is another suggestion that possibly they give off their own energy, and the chiral energy seems to have a lot in common with arguably kind of nuclear energy or light even in certain instances, which again could link it back to the upside down rainbow that we keep seeing being used. because again, that's light being split. Could it be that some of the effects that we're seeing from chiral energy are the energy being kind of refracted through something as a result of what, a breaking on a cosmic scale as a result of whatever it was that the Death Stranding event was? So again, here we've got Bridges marked down the legs of this corpse that he's carrying. But again, as we saw with the last trailer, here's him transporting a corpse, and seemingly a significant one considering it's all wrapped up and it's marked. Last time it seemed to be the corpse of Mads Mikkelsen's character, and who also seems to be, whether he's a game dev or not, he seemed to be the huge Titanic thing as well, judging from the kind of continuity between Gold Mask to Gold Mask and having no two representations of that character appear at the same time. But the big question to me would be, what's the significance of these corpses? Or is this even a corpse? But the other thing that kind of stands out to me is that this corpse seems to be kind of tall. It seems to be maybe even slightly bigger than Norman Reedus' character. But, is that just a trait, or was it just a big person? Who knows? But it's interesting to consider maybe that if he's a construct, then could he just be transporting other clones, constructs, that need to be woken up at the other end for a specific purpose? So I like the fact that, as much as we've seen a lot of other stuff in regards to environments in the other trailers, and we saw kind of the ruined, seemingly Belgian city in the very first trailer, here we're seeing a much more modern environment, and it's a ruin, and it's a case of wondering, firstly, what happened to it, how did it end up like this. But I was trying to, as we did with some of the other stuff for the first trailer, look for specific ways that things are built and all the rest of it. But it doesn't seem to have anything super distinguishing to me. It would be great to see what's actually on what seems to be kind of an advertising billboard thing here. But I guess that's why they've specifically shot it from this angle, so we can't see. But it seems to suggest that there will be, whilst we may very well be wandering through wilderness a lot, we'll be going to a lot more environments than that, and there are going to be some interesting kind of difficulties that throw in our way. Because in regards to us hiding from stuff and navigating, it seems kind of easy to do when you're in a big open space and you've got a lot of area to kind of navigate around the bad guys, as it were. But here, where it's raining through the roof as is, so we're at threat from the Timefall, if he runs into difficulty here, then potentially there's nowhere to run. No, unfortunately, it doesn't look. No, I can't really see anything on here though, and that's a shame. So here, we've got these rocky outcroppings. With the black rock seems much more familiar in regards to the other couple of trailers than some of the other more verdant areas that we've seen before. But also we've got him traveling with his two little companions. We've got all of these cables, but they seem to be clustered together much more tightly than they were before. But also all of this stuff seems to be floating up, and it just seems to be rocks that are floating up there. So here we're seeing some challenges that Sam seems to be going up against, like losing a vehicle, but he seems to walk everywhere, so that I don't know what the significance of the vehicle would be. But here, he's carrying so much. And it's like it just there has to be something, at least to my mind, unnatural about Sam, considering that he's able to carry all of this, and yet he is still just a fairly normal-sized guy. You know, it's precarious, it looks heavy. So I just want to pop back just a little bit there, because he's got the baby on his chest, and as he moves, the baby seems to be visible, as opposed to where the kind of shell has formed around it and it's opaque. Which, again, so far we've only really seen when the baby is active, so that the baby is kind of taking note of the environment to help us. So why it's in a situation here where we can see the baby, but the baby, you know, he doesn't seem to be looking for the bad guys or anything like that. Maybe the baby has more uses than just the kind of scanning and searching and detecting element, which I'm hopeful for, because again, it would be nice if the baby, it seemingly being its own character and our constant companion after a point, you know, I'm hoping that it has something to it that allows it to interact with a lot of kind of situations for us to help us out. So here he falls over and he drops his stuff, but then I like the fact that his suit instantly inflates and protects his head. But the problem, I can't unfortunately make out what's written across it there, which is a shame. You know, okay, so we just saw him rip his toenail off, so I don't know if there's going to be... We saw him taking a drink earlier as well, so I don't know if there's going to be a kind of survival element to certain areas of the game. But now, here, we see a base down below, and it seems to be a collection of kind of small research kind of huts and things, or that looks like it could be there to grow crops. And yet, on approaching, Sam arms himself. So we've been told that this game will probably, at least to begin with, the first kind of 4 or 5 hours, or 2 to 3 hours, and then kind of a couple of hours afterwards, it will still be fairly familiar. This game will have a lot of just straightforward third-person shooter, very familiar elements to it, and it's only after that that we're going to see kind of the weirdness develop. And so I kind of wonder what role the research institute or the research camp seems to have down there, and then also, more to the point, what kind of enemies we'll be facing, because the enemies that we've seen so far in the trailers, we've got seemingly undead soldiers, Mads Mikkelsen, and a collection of things that are either way too big to fight or somewhat kind of disconnected from the material world. And so the gun is only going to really work against a couple of those. And if Mads Mikkelsen can respawn the same way that we do, but with less of the negative effect to it, then, you know, it's going to be a different kind of situation trying to fight him with just physical weapons. So again, we see the message there of give me your hand in life, and we see these messages dotted throughout the rest of the trailer. And again, this seems to suggest a lot of connecting between people, but it also potentially seems to suggest sacrifice in certain ways, which we'll see, you know, more later on. And I'm really wondering if there's a collection of elements here where Sam is maybe a recreation of Sam from a different time. You know, there seems to be this element of time fast forwarding. you could use the Timefall to grow clones at an incredibly fast rate, and so it wouldn't be a surprise if, at least to me, if we saw how whatever the Death Stranding event was has prompted people either returning, people coming back, but through a form of either cloning or possibly through a reversal of the Timefall somehow. Now here we see that he's already got a few handprints on him, just as we're kind of coming down to look at him trying to pick up his photograph. But then the interesting thing is he starts getting sunburnt. Or at least that's what it looks like. Like, that's the colour that I turn in the sun. So, and whether this is this is part of him sensing it, or just that it's very close to him and it gives off its own energy, which would again explain why when things come close to him he starts crying, even if he doesn't mean to. You know, if it's giving off its own energy that's akin to UV or some kind of radiation that's going to essentially cause burnt skin on him like that, then you know that's going to be something to consider when possibly looking at the theory of kind of Mads as a game developer, because if he's able to incorporate himself in manifest himself in a variety of physical forms, you know, those transformations are probably going to take some energy. For these things to interact with the world, to breach the barrier between their existence and ours, that's probably also going to take a significant amount of energy. And so, you know, the giving off of that energy and it being shown here kind of suggests that maybe when it comes to us playing through our interactions with it, us respawning and the damage we cause, it's all part of those energetic interactions. It's like it seems that the grass is growing and dying because it's raining, rather than because this thing is passing by. But now we have a view of the girl that was speaking to him, and her suit is interesting. Keep an eye on these nubs on the back of her shoulders. So I didn't quite catch her name there, so that's... Oh, I wanted to go back, please. I think it had a name on the back of her suit. It says Fragile Express, which seems to be maybe a competing delivery company to Bridges. But also it says handled with care down there, sorry. So it's not a name, unfortunately. But... So again, she's got, where he has Porter and Bridges all over his gear, she has Fragile Express. So it's going to be interesting to maybe think that a chunk of this story is potentially going to be between kind of competing delivery services. Okay, so now she doesn't seem to be all that scared, and yet we've already got tears running down her face. But then we've got the 5 large creatures floating in the sky again, but this time they're not solidly shaped. They're not solid entities floating in the sky anymore. they are outlines, essentially, silhouettes, negative space that's just been highlighted against the sky. But then also, again, keep an eye on just the back of her gear here as those silhouettes fade out. So as the silhouettes fade out and they're all gone now, her suit kind of draws the little spikes back in. And so whether or not that's there as a sensory thing or as an indication from her, or maybe it's just that she's weird, there seems to be either another set of technology or another set of stuff to do with sensing out these creatures, as per the way that the baby was used with the weird clicking thing in the last trailer that we saw.
Headed into town.
So here we again have a better look at her. She's got a really weird umbrella for all intents and purposes. Although the one thing that kind of sticks out to me is its irregular shaping. Suggests to me that it reminds me of kind of stealth installations and the way that they're all odd shapes, and whether or not she's got this to keep herself hidden from above from those creatures, who knows? But apparently she's still her suit's still calm at the moment, but she's got her own delivery to make seemingly here.
Watch yourself. Those things never stay gone for long.
So if you spotted that just briefly, her umbrella just kind of flickers as she turns, and we've got these large kind of outcroppings in the background, which I believe is the town that she mentions heading towards, but it's hard really to see. But again, the vibration and stuff across her umbrella there seems to suggest that there's something more to it than just something to keep the rain off.
Those things never stay gone for long. The Timefall fast forwards whatever it touches, but it can't wash everything away. The past just won't let go.
So she's just said that the Timefall can't wash everything away. Stuff comes back. So again, where we see his hand in the shower later, it seems to be fine, even after it's been hit by water, provided that is post this event. But also she says that the Timefall, the effect it's had on the picture that he's got in his hand, it doesn't stay gone for long. It comes back. The past just doesn't want to let go. And again, part of me thinks that maybe that's a connection with kind of if he's a replication of someone from the past, to one extent or another, or a person that was maybe brought back by the Death Stranding, then maybe it would be a situation where he's going to be encountering things and seeing things from his past or from the past of the world, hence the World War II soldiers walking around being commanded by Mads Mikkelsen. But the other thing is that there was, unfortunately, it's hard to make out. It's like B something on the bottom of the picture that he's holding, but it was a signed picture.
I'll see you around. Sam Porter Bridges.
Sam, what's your status? Chiralium density is still increasing.
My staff.
Okay, so Chiralium density seems to be the creatures, the black creatures that float around, the ones that leave the handprints, the ones that drag people kicking and screaming into the black transitional fluid. They are apparently Chiralian of some description. And so they've got a way of monitoring them. Sam obviously has a handler to some extent. And again, this is a set of things to consider when looking at the way that this game may very well work. You know, it looks like we're going to be isolated for long periods, occasionally bumping into certain people, making connections. Because again, Kojima's gone back to talking about the rope and stick kind of idea where ropes connect people and sticks push people away, and so it's something that we're probably going to see time and time again in this, where we're going to be out by ourselves, wandering out in the wilderness, doing whatever it is that we've got to do, at least for a good couple of sections of the game. But then when it comes back to these connections, the connections are going to be very solid, very substantive. And it's going to be almost a positive mirror to the dark reflection that we get from these Kyrelian creatures when we see them in a minute.
Status is fucked. There's tons of them.
Can you sit out the rain?
No. They're closing in on my position. I have to move before they realize I'm in here.
Sam, if one of those things eats you, it'll trigger a void out.
So if one of those things eats you, it will trigger a void out, which I guess is what we saw in the last trailer, where he got consumed and there was the big explosion and it wiped out everything and he was the only thing that came back. You know, and that's obviously a concern for people, especially considering this seems to be a complex of some description.
You'll come back, sure, but the surrounding area will still be a crater.
I got an idea.
So I just want to stop it there because we for a moment, because we've got the little Homo Ludens Kojima logo character attached to the bottom of the baby's tank, which I just think is kind of cool, but also it makes me wonder whether or not this is some kind of entity in the Death Stranding universe that we might see more of, we might see something interesting with at some point. Okay, so again, we've seen how the baby gets connected up. It seems to be connected by both a monitor and a legitimate kind of syringe of some description, or it could have been a jack of some sort. It's hard to tell. But he's either connecting it to himself or at the very least to his suit. I feel like it might be a mixture of both, where the kind of syringe-looking thing, the needle, gets stabbed into Sam, and the little connector gets attached to this thing on his shoulder. But now we see all these things, and again, we've got some of them floating in ways that are very similar to the things that we see in the sky, but as said, we've got all of these cables, and all of the cables connect them kind of up into the sky, up to those entities that are up there seemingly overseeing everything, the same way that Mads Mikkelsen was connected to the undead soldiers in the very first trailer, or second trailer, whichever trailer it was. Second trailer, wasn't it? But it's a case of going right. So these challenges, these creatures being put in the way, are being seemingly controlled by those entities, by those huge entities that float in the sky, and that we seem to have seen Mads Mikkelsen turn into in one way or another in the last trailer, where everything went kind of tits up as soon as he did. But again, it's if we're making connections and kind of working with people, connecting people by making deliveries, all those sorts of things, the thing to take into account here is that we're doing that willingly. We're doing it positively. And yet here we've got this dark mirroring of what we do in a very kind of oppressive and negative and hungry and predatory way. Okay, so this bit's interesting because again, he's actually interacting with the baby. Where if I made the suggestion that maybe the baby is kind of a creature from the other side, or some kind of proto-dev. If Mads Mikkelsen is a kind of proper dev, a fully grown dev, then it's interesting. Firstly, that it's floating in water or fluid. because again, on the other side, it seems like the water is kind of everywhere. It's all encompassing. But then also, the baby closes one of its eyes, and I'm thinking that possibly, considering that Sam is now able, where he said, "I'm not able to see them," and even with the light flashing and flickering in the last trailer, we saw that he still wasn't able to see them. I think the baby closing one of its eyes is the baby allowing Sam the use of its perceptions. Like, half of its perception is gone, but now Sam can see as well. So it's kind of something that again interests me in the baby as a character, because the baby seems to have this capacity to share its abilities with Sam, and to what extent that kind of reaches is kind of what I want to know. Because if, again, as part of my theory before, was if Sam is being tested, and as there might be this shift towards the latter end of the game where possibly Mads is said to be an antagonist but not a bad guy necessarily, in which case, fine, is he testing to look to kind of pick Sam up and take him off in a different direction? Are they looking to help this baby grow or whatever else? But it's this combination of your extinction factor strange guy Sam and this seemingly cosmic strange baby. You know, that kind of intersection is going to be interesting to play out. So again, the thing that interests me here is that Sam can see them for a moment, but only seemingly when they're off in front of him, so the baby could probably see them as well. But then the sensor can still track them, but Sam can't see them anymore once they've kind of moved past, which again suggests that the visual element is kind of related to the baby itself. Now, it interests me that this one and that one over there as well seem to have their arms out there. They're seemingly searching for something, but they don't know you're here yet. And so, kind of the question that springs out to me is, well, if they don't, you know, what are they searching for? You know, if they don't know you're here and whatever else, then what are they searching for? But also, it could just be that they're anything for it. So here, it interests me that these guys just pop in out of nowhere. You know, we see them fade away over there, and then they just reappear. Even though the baby's looking, even though the sensor is on, even though Sam is holding his breath, but also Sam's actually seemingly running out of breath. You know, we see the camera shake and stuff like that. And so whether Sam having to be as quiet as possible, lower his own oxygen intake, then potentially causes him stress, disconnects him from the baby in some way. You know, I'm hoping that we're seeing this interaction be a kind of focal and complex thing rather than something that's just you plug into the baby and it kind of helps. So, but here we've got, it has two arms, but it also has this other thing hovering off to the side, and I don't think it's necessarily, yeah, because it's still floating up there by itself. So it's interesting. But then, as they charge, as they drag him under, which we've seen before. But again, it seems like a lot of the movement between physical and other kind of throws up and down, out of whack, which again we kind of see in the last trailer that we looked at, which was where you had the ground when you came into the other space. the ground was underneath the water was all the way up, but then up seemed to be where gravity was, and yet there were creatures swimming through the air above the water. So it's seems like there's a lot of direct opposites and weird contrasts in this game, which again kind of feeds into the our connections are good, and then the connections made by the other side are not so good. And whether or not that will play into any kind of multiplayer or kind of joint events for everybody as well is going to be interesting.
A crypto bite a day keeps the timefall away.
So she just called this a crypto bite, which I guess it is a crypto of some description, a cryptid. It's an odd creature. But these are the things that we saw it kind of popping out of Sam's mouth when he kind of when he respawned. And it seems that he had kind of taken them in inadvertently. They had kind of traveled with him as a result of how he maneuvered from one state, one existence to another. But here she's got one. She seems to be in the material world, but it's hard to tell with the big black background. But she seems to be wearing all the same stuff. She's not naked like Sam was. And yet she's eating this poor thing. That kind of remind me of tardigrades as well, I'd add. And she says that it keeps the timefall away. Whether or not there's any truth to that, who knows?
You still don't know who I am, do you?
Who are you?
So this is on the beach that we saw in the very, very first trailer with all the dead sea life, where you had the things floating in the sky. You had a naked Sam with the baby outside of its tank, but then the baby and you know, the umbilicals and everything else, him disconnected from it with the big scar on his stomach. So whether or not this is we're not sure which side of things this is at the moment. But she's just said that she does, you know, he doesn't know who she is. And he says, well, who are you? And she just seems to be a younger version of the woman that was in the picture with Sam that he was looking at earlier on. And so again, if she's if the picture was possibly a family picture of them doing something significant, or you know, something to that extent, then there was another younger woman in the picture with him. The older woman seemingly being an older version of this character here. And then Sam, it could be that, yeah, he's been reborn, but she wasn't. She's just been somehow rejuvenated. And as a result, this conversation becomes a case of she remembers because she remembers him. He looks exactly the same, but he's maybe got a spotty memory, or he's not the same, or he is the same, but so much weird stuff has been happening that it just doesn't add up to him anymore. And again, we've got this the rainbow covering part of her to some extent. But she just seems really troubled by things. And then we've had these messages of, what was it? Give me your hand in life, give me your hand in death, give me your hand in flesh, and give me your hand in spirit. So it seems like there are lots of different connections that are being asked of us here. In terms of life and death, well, yeah, sure, we're going to be living through the game, we're going to be dying in the game. In terms of flesh, well, yeah, you're potentially going to be augmenting Sam, probably through the baby. And then in spirit, well, we're seeing him move into this weird other space, which seems to be parallel in some way to other versions of reality, a la the kind of lineup between the passage of Guillermo del Toro's character with the baby and Sam's character with the baby in the first two trailers that we saw. So, you know, we've got a lot of information here. Not really much that I can use to support my theory on Mads and the other like large creatures being game developers, and this all being kind of a laid out set of challenges that's being programmed and worked around to potentially separate the weak from the strong. You know, just because we don't see that much of those characters specifically in this trailer, the most we see of them is their kind of negative space outlines in the sky a little earlier when when the rain has just stopped. But yeah, it's still interesting to look through, and especially with some of the gameplay, I'm interested to see kind of more of that as it goes on. Like, as it's been said numerous times that the gameplay is going to be fairly standard third-person shooter affair up until a certain point, and then stuff starts to get more weird. And I love the weird stuff, so I'm going to be looking forward to that wholeheartedly, but I like the idea of it easing people into it over an extended period of time instead of it being rushed. You know, I'd much prefer to have this story that seems to have an awful lot of complex moving parts to it that are either very, very simple and straightforward or just really, really difficult because of the amount of information that we've got at the moment anyway. It's going to be really interesting for that to kind of slowly kind of work our way into it. And I wonder if that's why we've got those large expanses of terrain for us to cross making deliveries. You know, we're going to have these big elements, and we're going to have that time to observe with new information, to mull over what we've just learned, to play the game, to learn what is coming next. Because that's something that again, Kojima has talked about in regards to kind of learning through play, and how play can be a very substantive and influencing thing, and that's why we play games. That's why we do all of this stuff. But anyway, as I said, it's not really something that lines up. There's nothing really in this trailer that lines up as well with some of my previous theories, because my previous theories focused very much more around Mads Mikkelsen's character as the key to everything, and as he is conspicuously absent from this trailer, it makes it difficult for me to pin down any more information and analyze it anymore to pull stuff out on him. Because I still think that his character, seemingly as a main antagonist, is at the core of whatever it is that's going on. And the more we learn around his character, the more we're going to see this stuff grow and evolve and maybe become a little more clear to us. But here we've finally got some gameplay. We've finally got some parts of the kind of cutscene elements that maybe explain some more to us. But, you know, we'll have to see, and hopefully we won't be waiting too long, another year or so, before we start to see stuff that explains a little bit more. But either way, guys, what are your thoughts? I'd love to hear your thoughts. You know, I've obviously got my theories that I've drawn from other stuff. I've seen some theories that seem crazy, some theories that seem great. And, you know, we won't know until the game actually comes out, but it's something that is oh so interesting to look into, especially considering who this game is coming from and what's been mentioned about this game so far. So either way, guys, I'd love to hear your thoughts, and otherwise, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the video later. Take care. Thank you very much for watching, guys. If you enjoyed this video or found it interesting, please drop us a like, share this video, and subscribe for more, and I'll see you in the video later. Take care.